This video will help you prepare and care for your new pet. We'll cover a lot, which combined with reading the Retired Greyhound Trust's owner's manual will give you the complete picture. And there's nothing complicated or difficult. Sari Pierce has been working with racing and retired greyhounds for more than 20 years and will guide you through a lot of what you need to know and do for your dog.
Well, prior to you getting your greyhound, when you've decided you're going to take one home as a pet, you need to get the right equipment beforehand. The first thing is the proper lead and collar. Now that should be a leather one. We call it a fishtail collar, and it's slightly wider, and that is because it supports the greyhound's neck. A leather lead is better because it doesn't hurt your hands if the dog pulls on it. That's used for walking out on the street. You also want a nice little soft collar we call a house collar that the dog can wear all the time, and you use that one for your tag, and on that you put your telephone number, your address, the dog's name, whatever you want. If you decide to have your dog chipped, you'll be given a small green tag which shows the number that you telephone if your dog is ever lost. That also goes onto the house collar, into the brass ring, and it's clipped on firmly. So your dog always keeps that collar on. If it does get lost or stolen, it can be traced and returned to you. The other thing you'll need is a box muzzle. Now that you have to have a proper racing greyhound box muzzle. It's a light plastic muzzle. Dogs are always used to using them. They don't have any problem with wearing them. If your muzzle you use hasn't got padding on the part across the nose, then you can put some on yourself. A bit of elastoplast or some sticky backed foam will stop the bridge of the nose being rubbed by the muzzle. Now you use the muzzle when you go out in public, when you're walking on the road, if you're travelling in a car, because it's much safer for the dog if there is an accident, and it's safer for people in the car. You use the box muzzle as well when your dog is meeting other pets for the first time, just for safety's sake. And you also use the box muzzle when, let's say for example, you're going out for the first time. You don't know how the dog might behave, if it's distressed when you leave. Pop the box muzzle on, and then you won't come home to find chairs being chewed up or the curtains being shredded or something like that. So it's just to make sure that the dog doesn't do any damage until you can trust it. The other thing you'll need for your dog is a walk-in outcoat. The best type is waterproof on the outside and has a fleece lining inside, so it can be used in wet weather and cold weather. To decide which sort of coat you want, you measure the dog from the back of the neck to the top of its bottom to its tail. If, for example, that's 30 inches, then that's the size coat that you buy. Some of them have a collar which stands up, so that keeps the dog extra warm in very cold, wintry weather. The best type of coat to buy for the greyhound is one from a greyhound supplier, not a pet shop, because if you buy it from the supplier, you're getting the right shape for the dog, and it's usually much cheaper and a better quality. You also need a bed. Most greyhounds like to stretch out when they're sleeping, and a duvet is an ideal type of bed. So if you have two old duvets, single duvet with a cover, you can keep them washed all the time. The other type of bedding you can use is vet bed. That's like a sheepskin looking rug, but it's washable, and that keeps the dog warm and it's easily washed and dried. The other thing that's useful to have, maybe you can borrow one to start with unless you want to use one permanently, is a stair gate. That will stop a dog going up the stairs if you don't want it to go up the stairs. It can also help confine a dog to one room, for example the kitchen when you're going out. Very few of them will bother to jump over it, they'll just look through. The next thing you need are feed and water bowls. The best type of water bowl is stainless steel and of the non-tip variety, because you must always have water down. Make sure it's large enough because the greyhound is quite messy when it drinks, and some greyhounds want quite a lot of water. Use stainless steel food bowls. You can put them on a stand, which you can buy from specialist dealers, or just use it on the floor. Some dogs are quite messy when they eat, and so you can use just a cheap plastic washing up bowl, and when you've mixed the food, turn it into the bowl for the dog to eat from that. The main thing is to make sure you choose where your dog is going to eat and drink and keep to that place all the time. The other things you need are things for grooming. You want a flea comb which has nice smooth teeth. You run your finger across the top of the teeth, make sure they're not sharp. And the teeth need to be close enough together to hold a flea if you do happen to pick one up. The flea comb takes out loose hair, and as I say, will pick up the odd flea or show you there's a tick there maybe. You also want a soft bristle brush that you can use for brushing your dog afterwards. That's very nice for the dog, and it also helps stimulate the skin and the hair growth. It makes the dog feel really good and picks up loose hair again. Then you need a pair of nail clippers to keep your dog's nails in good order. It's quite easy to learn to do, and you can buy some that have a guard built in so you can't make mistakes by cutting the nail too far. Then you want a toothbrush. You can buy a special toothbrush for a dog, or you can buy a rubber finger brush that you use to apply the toothpaste. You must use dog toothpaste. You can't use, one that you have in your bathroom. Unlike some people's idea about greyhounds, they do like playing with toys. A nice rubber ball or a rubber ring is a popular toy with greyhounds that they can, you can throw and they can chase and maybe in time learn to bring back to you. A lot of greyhounds love to have sort of cuddly toys, teddies and things like that, which they will keep on their bed and sort of cuddle up to or carry around. Most greyhounds only need one meal a day. If your dog is underweight or has maybe had an operation or been ill, you can feed it a breakfast if you want to. The type of food you feed should be low protein, in between 17 and 21%. You can choose whether you feed your dog dry or soak the food. If you soak the food, then that means your dog is getting sufficient water in its diet. Otherwise it could suffer from kidney failure or other problems, dehydration, if it doesn't drink enough water. The advantage of dry feeding is that the crunchiness of the food keeps the dog's teeth in good condition. Some people make an ideal choice by feeding 1/3 dry as a snack, for example, for breakfast, and 2/3 of their food soaked for their main meal. You choose when you feed your greyhound. It doesn't matter to the greyhound, but you must stick to a routine, so you choose a time that suits you. If you're soaking your food, you must use cold water. Hot water destroys the vitamin content and it makes the food go very mushy and unpalatable. When you've chosen your basic food, let's say an 18% protein food, it's good for the greyhounds to add such things as sunflower oil, about a tablespoon a day. And in the winter, you can use a dessert spoonful of cod liver oil, which is very good for the dog. Oil keeps the dog in good condition, the skin, the coat, etc. And because greyhounds are quite a thin-skinned animal, the oil is an advantage to them, but more so than other dogs. A greyhound can have a lot of fat in its diet without having any ill effect to it. The other thing you can do is add things to the basic meal. For example, a tin of sardines in oil, just mixed in just before you serve the food. You can use things like tin mackerel or tuna also in oil, just a small tin mixed into the feed. It doesn't have to be every day, just to give the dog that additional nutritional benefit. There's no need to add any meat to the dog's diet. The complete food has a proper balance of protein, vitamins and minerals. There is a danger with raw meat that it might cause tapeworm. That's a possibility. Meat or tripe can make the dog rather smelly, which is not very nice to live with. The other thing about feeding is don't let your dog rule you. Greyhounds will eat most things. If they become fussy, it's because you've allowed them to be fussy, and then you've got a big problem with feeding the dog. There's never any reason for a greyhound not to want to eat. They're quite greedy animals. You must always keep a fresh supply of water down for your dog, as I said, in the same place so they know where it is. And make sure it's changed daily. And if they've drunk a lot on a hot day, make sure you top it up. The other thing the dog needs is some type of chew or bone to keep its teeth in good condition. Don't use cooked bones left over from your Sunday dinner. They are very, very dangerous for the dog. You can buy like a roast knuckle bone from a pet shop, which is safe to use, sterilised bones, pig's ears, tripe sticks, those sort of chews. Sometimes you can buy biscuits that are for dog's teeth. All those kinds of things help to keep the teeth clean, prevent a tartar build-up, and to keep the gums free from disease. They also keep the dog occupied, and dogs like something to chew on. It's a natural thing that they do because we don't give them their natural diet, which they would have had in the wild. It's good to give your dog treats because it helps with training, for rewarding the dog when it's done something. But restrict your treats to small things like small cubes of cheese, small meaty flavoured biscuits and things like that. Never give your dog chocolate, sweet biscuits, tidbits from the table, because that will encourage bad habits, and chocolate and things like that are in fact very bad for the dog's health. Don't let children give dogs treats at any time, because then the dog might learn it can snatch something from a young child. So you restrict the person who gives the treats to the dog. Now you've got all your equipment, and now you have to get your house ready for the actual day you take your dog home. You want to make sure before you bring the dog into the house that all pets are put away, the cat's put in a place of safety if you have a cat. You haven't got all the grandchildren around or things like that. It's reasonably quiet and all set up ready for the dog. The bed's in position, the water bowl, etc. When you bring your dog home, make sure your collar is on the dog tightly enough before you take it out of the car. If you go to open the car, the dog's in a strange place, panic could set in and your dog's gone before you've even got it indoors. The first thing is keep reassuring it, talk to it quietly and gently. You know, we're going to take you into your new home, we're going to meet everybody, that sort of thing. The first thing you do is take the dog into the back garden, still on the lead, walk it around the garden so it can see where its perimeters are. Wait for the dog to relieve itself. When it does, praise it, give it a tidbit if you like, and make a fuss because the dog has done well.
Good girl, Mabel. There's a good girl. Yes.
Then you want to take the dog into the house. Now, if people are there to meet the dog, have them sitting down, let's say in the living room, nice and quietly, not all rushing around, rushing at the dog. Walk the dog around the house, getting used to, a new kind of place. If you have patio doors, or sort of French windows, take the dog towards the window, tap the glass sharply, and let the dog touch it with his nose. Some dogs have been known to fly into a patio door because they don't realise the glass is there. Show the dog where the water bowl is and where the bed is. Just walk them towards them. Now you're going to meet the rest of the people in the house. Have them sitting down, take the dog in, and allow the dog to approach people if it wants to. When it does, let them just hold their hand out, stroke the dog gently if it doesn't appear to be frightened, talk quietly and softly, fondle the dog's ears.
Oh, she's taken to Ali, haven't you? Yes.
When you've undergone that process, then just let the dog wander around the house on its own, and then it can go into the garden as well. If you don't want your dog to go up the stairs, don't let it. Start as you mean to go on. You can use a safety gate to stop it walking up the stairs if you want to, or you just have to start by saying no. Otherwise, you'll end up with a dog sleeping with you by the side of your bed. That's fine if you want it, but if you don't let it happen from the beginning. Now, when your dog has settled in and you want to introduce it to the cat, go through the same process. Nice and quiet. Choose a time when you can use the living room, for example, and there isn't a lot of noise and people rushing around, television blaring out, that sort of thing. Put the box muzzle on the dog and the lead and allow them to sniff, mutually explore each other, but don't pick the cat up. Don't hold the cat up above the dog's head level. If you think that they're going to get on reasonably well, the cat may retreat to the back of the armchair or something, but that's fine. As long as the dog is not lunging, doesn't have its tail up in the air, isn't staring at the cat, then you've started the process. So you can take the lead off, but leave the box muzzle on. Your dog will have been categorised by the Retired Greyhound Trust. A category of 1 to 5 determines how cat-friendly a dog is likely to be. So your dog will only be in category 1 to 4 if you've got a cat. You won't be offered one if it's in category 5. So that means, in theory, your dog will learn sooner or later to live with a cat. And likewise, the cat will learn to live with the dog. You must take care that the cat doesn't lunge at the dog and scratch its face. Cats can be very, very violent if they get frightened, and they can scratch the dog's eye and cause an ulcer or something like that. So you do need to be quite vigilant. You will eventually, in most cases, get them living happily together. And I've known of greyhounds where, for example, they would sleep together in the same bed with a cat, and the dog and cat will eat side by side. Again, the greyhound is no different to any other dog. The only difference is it's a sight hound. The cat that it loves indoors will not be the same as the cat that's climbing across the fence or rushing through next door's garden. Or a strange cat rushing through your garden may always be seen as fair game for the dog to chase, but it won't chase your own cat. Things like rabbits and guinea pigs that you may have, children may have, again, make sure they're always confined and the dog can't get at them. And very often the greyhound will lose interest. A rabbit running across the lawn will always be a different prospect in most cases, but not the pet rabbit. So they can live side by side as long as children and other people in the house understand the rules. If the rabbit's out free, put it away when the dog wants to go in the garden. But it can be done. And even greyhounds and rabbits can learn to live together just like a dog and a cat. Now, you may have another dog at home you want to introduce to your dog, or you may just want to make sure your dog is going to get on well with other dogs. Some greyhounds haven't seen many other breeds, which sometimes makes them feel a little bit frightened or apprehensive, or sometimes a bit aggressive towards other dogs. It doesn't mean to say they don't bond or cannot bond. They are all dogs. If you have another dog you want to introduce, you need another person to help you with the process. Both dogs should be on their leads. Both dogs should be wearing muzzles. Because if you know they can't do any damage, that helps you feel relaxed, and the process is much, much more successful. If you can, use a neutral area out in the open air. Don't attempt this indoors. If not, use the back garden. You allow the two dogs to approach each other with their muzzles on, and you hold the leads. Don't let them pull and drag at the lead. Keep the lead loose and relaxed. The dog picks up tension and fear from you. Allow the dogs to sniff each other. They will very often sniff each other's behinds, underneath, etc., and move around. If the dog, one of the dogs, for example, growls, just say no very firmly and then try again. Just keep saying no if they growl. If the dog sort of lunges, again, just say no and then hold the collar. When you think the dogs are quite relaxed with each other, the next step is you and the other person with your dogs just walk around, just in a relaxed way, just chat and allow the dogs to walk along with you. Again, don't drag or pull on the lead.
I'm going to unbuckle it.
Unbuckling it.
There's a good boy. There's a good boy.
Then you think there'll be a point where you can let both the dogs off to allow them just to get to know each other better and move around and maybe play together. You'll notice very often that dogs, particularly two male dogs, whether they're neutered or not, will pass water. One will have a wee, the other one will go and wee over the same place. That's them all part of their process of getting to know each other and also deciding who's going to be the top dog. It doesn't matter how well dogs get on together, there will always be one who is going to be dominant over the other. You may not notice it, but the dogs will notice it. One of the things that helps you bond with your dog is the grooming. Greyhounds are used to daily grooming and they really enjoy it. You'll find that they'll sit still or stand still, won't jiggle about like lots of dogs. Start with the flea comb and just go down from behind the ears all the way down the body, down the shoulders. The flea comb will remove loose hair. If your dog's picked up a flea, it will be caught between the teeth of the comb, and it's quite easy then just to run your thumbnail across the teeth of the comb and that will kill the flea. If you come across a tick, which is like a little sort of grey sac attached to the dog, rather like a pale wart, don't attempt to pull it with the flea comb. The flea comb will show you it's there, or you'll feel it with your hands, but you need to have a different method of removing that. The next thing you do is to brush your dog with the brush. Again, long sweeping movements from the head down. Don't forget the front of the neck and down the legs. And also the back of the tail. A lot of people forget to do around the root of the tail, and that can get quite a lot of loose hair, etc. About once a month or so, you can use a product like benzoyl benzoate and massage that into the dog, all over the hair. And then you can allow that to dry, then brush the dog. That will keep the skin in good condition, help lift scurf and that sort of thing, and make the coat shine. The dog loves being massaged. You just use circular motions with your hand and then finish off by smoothing the dog down. To do the ears, you can use a cotton bud, but don't poke in too far, and just gently clean in the ear. You can see the dog's ears quite clearly. If you think that the ears are very dirty, you can use an ear wash or a little oil to get that out. If the dog has anything else wrong with its ears, if they smell or there's discharge, then you need to take it to a vet. Now you need to look at the dog's feet. Pick each foot up and look underneath. Check that there's nothing stuck in any of the pads or between the toes, that the pads aren't sore or they've got little scratches or cuts on them or splits. Check the nails. You shouldn't be able to hear a dog's nails. If you're walking up the road, there shouldn't be a clip-clop sound. If there is, then the dog's nails need cutting. And when you cut, using the cutters, you do a clean, straight cut across. The reason people worry about doing nails is because they think they're going to make them bleed. If your dog has white nails, you can see the line of the quick inside. That would be the blood vessel going down towards the tip of the nail from the toe. As long as you cut below that line, the nail won't bleed. Right, cleaning the teeth. Now, you can use a toothbrush. You use the same motion that you would expect to use up and down. Don't forget each surface of the tooth inside the mouth. Use a proper dental toothpaste for dogs, because if you use McLean's or something like that, you're causing a lot of foaming and you can cause stomach upset in the dogs. If you find the toothbrush awkward, you can use a rubber finger brush, which is just fitted onto your finger, toothpaste on that, and you rub that up and down the teeth and around all the surfaces. Don't forget in the back teeth, etc. Now, greyhounds sometimes have a problem with their teeth. They've been fed mostly on a soft diet, and so they do seem to build up quite a lot of tartar and staining on their teeth. If your dog has come from the Retired Greyhound Trust and has been castrated or spayed, if there's any dental work that's needed on that dog, it will be done at the same time as that operation, so your dog will then have perfect teeth, which you need to maintain. So that's why we do regular cleaning, and we also use the bones and the tubes. If you think your dog has a problem with a tooth that's sore or infected, then you need to take him to the vet to get that sorted out. Bad teeth cause all sorts of problems, pain for the dog and of course stomach problems and things like that, so you mustn't neglect their teeth ever. But the watchword is regular care. One of the things about having a greyhound is people are convinced they need lots and lots of exercise, and that puts off new owners. A greyhound will live quite happily and healthily on 2 short walks a day, about 20 minutes each, and then maybe just a quick spin around the garden. A greyhound is built for speed, not for sustained activity. When you see your dog in the garden, it will rush around like a whirling dervish for a few minutes and then lie down and spend the next 24 hours asleep. So they don't need a lot of exercise, but they need to have some fresh air, they need to have some interest in their lives. If you want to take your dog on longer walks or allow it to run with you, then you have to build that level up. You can't expect a dog who's just retired from racing to suddenly go on a 5 or 6 mile walk. You use the proper collar and lead, and when you take your dog out for a walk, most greyhounds will walk along very comfortably beside you as if they've been taught to walk to heel. You have to be aware that if the dog spots something across the road, it might take off and take you with it. So although you're walking along in a relaxed way, you actually have one hand held very firmly on the lead, although the lead may just be hanging in a relaxed way between you and the dog. So you do need to be careful about that. That's why a box muzzle is of such good use, because if a small dog runs towards you and the greyhound decides it wants to pick it up, the box muzzle prevents all sorts of upset and injuries to other dogs. If you're going off somewhere in the car and maybe going for a walk, maybe out for the day with a family, you must take water with you and a bowl to give the dog a drink. Also, if you're travelling in a car, always carry water and a bowl, because if you get caught in a traffic jam, as you know, it heats up very, very quickly and the dog can become very, very distressed. Toilet training is something that people always worry about with dogs. People seem to think that greyhounds haven't got a clue about how to control themselves and they're going to be a special problem. No dog is too old to teach something new. A greyhound is like any other animal. It doesn't want to be dirty. It doesn't want to soil its own home, its own sleeping area. It just needs you to help the dog to retrain the way it thinks. You need to, when you take the dog home, try and make it the weekend or when somebody's home all the time. Start off getting yourself some little treats together. Take the dog out into the garden. Wait for it to empty or relieve itself. Praise it, give it a treat. In an hour, take it again and keep on with the process. Walk it round on a lead or let it wander free. You keep on that process every hour, taking the dog out, see if it will relieve itself. Over a period of 2 days, you can reduce that down to every 2 hours and so on. It is useful if you choose a word or a phrase that goes with this. So, for example, some people say, get busy. Or some people just say, wee wee. It doesn't matter, as long as you use the same word every time the dog goes out, performs, gets praised and gets treated. Don't ever tell your dog off for having an accident in the house. It doesn't understand. Greyhounds are very sensitive, get very upset, and then they're more likely to have an accident again. Just take the dog outside to show it that that's where it should go, and just clear up, don't say anything. Now, people sometimes say the dog is weed in that area, it's gone back and done it again, and I cleaned it up really well. If you use disinfectant or some sort of proprietary cleaner with a nice smell, it smells nice to us, the dog can still smell the underlying smell of the urine, for example. You need to use a biological solution or something like Biotex powder to wash an area that's been soiled by a dog. That's the only way you'll cover that smell. And it's like everything else. If you persevere and you're patient, then the dog will learn. The dog wants to learn, it wants to be clean. A dog of any age can learn to be clean. As long as it's not frightened or upset and you're patient, you'll get there in the end.
Patience is vital, and so is fun. Your dog will respond and learn much quicker if he's enjoying himself. Here, Pete is being trained by Sari to respond to the spoken instruction to come. His attention is being diverted from Sari by a tasty bone, and he's on a long training lead in case he needs a gentle tug to start him off. He's rewarded by a treat and praise, both invaluable tools in training. It's not then hard to train the dog to respond without a training lead. It's useful to have a second person to help keep the dog from wandering off and to keep him concentrating on the task in hand.
Good boy, good boy.
A whistle is useful for calling your dog over long distances, and the principle for training him with that is the same. Again, it's useful to have a second person to help keep the dog concentrating. And if you'd rather not have to call your dog all the time, a clicker works too, backed up, of course, by a treat.
Good boy, good boy. Well done. Well done. You are a good boy, aren't you? Hmm? Well done.
Any dog can be trained regardless of age or previous experience. It just needs patience, perseverance and affection. He can learn a range of commands and can even be taught with the aid of a simple distraction device like a pebble tin and a reward to leave things alone.
Good boy. Good boy.
Your greyhound will probably be a retired race dog. And if it's a young dog, it's very often because it might have had an injury during its racing career. It's quite useful if you can find out what sort of injury the dog may have had. Any dog that's had a racing career, or any elderly dog in fact, may develop arthritis. It's very easy to treat that with things like arnica tablets, a homeopathic tablet. You don't need to go for very expensive medication from a vet, unless it gets severe. If a dog has, for example, maybe had a wrist injury in the past, you may find if it has quite a bit of exercise, more than usual, it may come back with holding its wrist up. Again, don't panic about that. You can treat that with a cold hose pipe on the wrist. An ice pack of frozen peas can be held over the joint, but remember, always put a soft cloth around the joint first. Never put ice in direct contact with the skin. You can also again use arnica cream and arnica tablets to help reduce any swelling or pain, and you'll find that 5 minutes later the dog is fine and doesn't feel anything. The same thing happens with toes. Sometimes if the dog is running around, knocks its feet, as with any animal can do, might come back again holding its foot up. You think, oh my goodness me, look at this lump and bump. If you know about it beforehand, then there's nothing to worry about. Again, ice packing, arnica, cold water, all those things help with that. If your dog suffers an injury that you think might need treatment at the vet, or it's in a lot of pain, you can, in an emergency, give your dog aspirin. Never ever give a dog any other painkiller. If you use something like ibuprofen, like a Nurofen type of tablet, you can actually cause your dog a lot of damage or even kill it. So that's the only painkiller you use in any circumstance, apart, as I say, from the homeopathic things like arnica. Sometimes your dog may get a stomach upset, get some diarrhea, or maybe be sick. Now, that's no problem. Lots of dogs eat something or just feel a bit upset, get a bit of a bug. But you must make sure your dog doesn't dehydrate. If your dog is ill, don't feed it for 24 hours. And that's not being cruel, that's the kindness involved in this treatment. But you must make sure your dog has plenty of fluids. We've said before, your dog must always have water down. Now, if your dog's not very keen on drinking lots of water, you can try adding a spoonful of honey to the water to make it palatable for the dog, just to make sure it drinks the fluids. If it won't touch any water at all, a tiny little drop of milk can make it drink the fluid as well. You don't want to give your dog milk to drink because that will make the stomach upset worse, but a little in the water will just encourage it to drink. Now you can also buy rehydrating fluids, like get a sachet or a powder from a pet shop or somewhere like that, or a chemist, and put that in the water. That replaces the salts that the dog is losing from its body. And after 24 hours, if there's been no more vomiting or diarrhea and your dog is looking brighter, then you can give it a light meal, something like boiled rice and a bit of chicken, until you feel it's fully better again. If it continues, then you take the dog to the vet. You know your dog is quite poorly when its eyes look dull, they seem to go back into the head a little bit, and it's very, very listless. 24, 48 hours is fine, but after that you have to get advice for the dog. Now, we've talked about looking at feet, checking for things that might be, stuck in the pad that you can pull out with tweezers, for example. If you think something's in the pad, maybe you can feel a bit of grit or something and you can't get hold of it, then you can use a poultice on it. You can buy those easily, which would maybe draw that out, and then maybe get it out with tweezers. Zinc and castor oil is a good thing for drawing foreign bodies out of the skin. If you are convinced there's a foreign body in the pad and you can't get it, then again, take it to the vet. Now, if the dog has sore feet or the pads seem a bit cracked, that may be partly because it hasn't had enough fats in its diet, enough of the fat-soluble vitamins, so you remedy that obviously with the diet. But in the short term, you need to restrict the road walking. Some greyhounds may not have walked on roads, and they're quite hard surfaces, they're quite punishing on the feet. So if you think they're like that, then you can use aloe vera gel and smooth onto the feet. It's very soothing, it takes away any heat the dog is feeling. It is very healing as well if you have a slight abrasion or soreness of the foot. The advantage with aloe vera is that it dries very quickly. It doesn't mess up your carpet, your soft furnishings. Things like Vaseline, etc., will ruin a carpet. You must buy aloe vera that's 99+% content. It's no good buying it from a cosmetic counter where it says aloe vera gel and it's, you know, a very low content in it. The other thing that's useful for feet that seem a bit tender and sore from road walking is surgical spirit. That will harden the surface of the skin up. And in time, as I say, if you do all these things gradually, build up the road walking, then the dog will become accustomed to that. If you have any small cuts and grazes on the feet, between the toes, on the legs, or anywhere the dog may have picked them up, use salt water. That's the best way to clean. Just use cotton wool, salt water solution, and just sponge the area. Now, regular cleaning of the ears, as we said, should keep them in good condition. If for any reason, you know, you may have been ill or something, the dirt in the ear is allowed to build up, you may find that you need to use something like a Dermisol ear solution, that type of solution, an ear wash. You squirt into the ear, close the ear flap over, just rub gently with your fingers, and then after a short while you'll find that you can clean the ear easily with your cotton wool bud or cotton.
None of the treatments Sari has talked about is complex or expensive, but if ever in doubt, consult your vet. And nothing you've seen in this video is complicated or hard to do. It's just a question of getting used to doing it and getting to know your dog. The Retired Greyhound Trust Owner's Manual provides more information and detail, and again, it's all very straightforward. Greyhounds are responsive, sensitive and intelligent dogs. They thrive on human company, they'll respond to training, and they positively adore being groomed and kept in good condition, as Sari has learnt with many dogs over many years.
Greyhounds are sociable, loving animals who make great pets. They don't require a lot of exercise. It doesn't matter what their age or background is. If you follow a few simple rules with patience and perseverance, you can end up with a very loving companion in your home.